The morning sun had barely crested the horizon when Marcus Green's alarm clock shattered the silence of his small bedroom. He reached over groggily, silencing the persistent beeping before it could wake his daughter Emma in the adjacent room. Another day, another struggle to make ends meet. Marcus had become accustomed to the weight of responsibility that pressed down on his shoulders ever since his wife Sarah had passed away 3 years ago from a sudden illness. Left alone to raise their then 5-year-old daughter, he had learned quickly that life as a single father was an unrelenting series of challenges, each day demanding more strength than he thought he possessed. Marcus worked as a handyman in the small rural town of Millbrook, a place where everyone knew everyone else's business and where opportunities were as scarce as rain in a drought. His skills were diverse, born from necessity rather than formal training. He could fix a leaky roof, repair a broken fence, restore an old piece of furniture, or diagnose and solve almost any household problem. But despite his capabilities and willingness to work any job that came his way, the income was sporadic and barely sufficient to cover rent, groceries, and the mountain of medical bills that still haunted him from Sarah's final months. Emma needed new shoes for school, and he had noticed the worn soles of her current pair just yesterday, a detail that kept him awake most of the night calculating and recalculating his meager finances. That particular morning, Marcus received a call from Tom Henderson, the local hardware store owner who occasionally connected him with people needing repairs. Tom's gravelly voice explained that someone needed help fixing an old shed on a farm just outside town. The pay was modest but honest, and Marcus needed every dollar he could earn. He agreed immediately, packed his tools into the bed of his weathered pickup truck, dropped Emma off at school with a promise to pick her up on time, and headed toward the address Tom had given him. The drive took him through winding country roads lined with fields that stretched endlessly toward distant tree lines. This part of the county was predominantly agricultural, with farms of varying sizes dotting the landscape. Marcus had always found something peaceful about these open spaces, even though his own life felt anything but peaceful. He pulled onto a dirt road marked by a simple wooden sign that read, "Clearwater Farm," though the lettering was faded and barely legible. The road itself needed maintenance, with potholes and uneven surfaces that made his truck bounce uncomfortably. After nearly a mile of rough driving, Marcus arrived at what appeared to be an old equipment shed, weathered gray wood with a sagging roof and a door hanging askew on broken hinges. Nearby stood a woman in her early 30s, dressed in practical work clothes, worn jeans, a denim shirt with rolled-up sleeves, and muddy boots. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she was examining the shed with a concerned expression. When she heard his truck approach, she turned and walked over with a friendly but reserved smile. "You must be Marcus," she said, extending her hand.
I'm Kate Morrison.
"Thanks for coming out here on short notice." Marcus shook her hand, noting her firm grip and the calluses that suggested she was no stranger to physical work. "No problem at all. Tom said you needed help with this shed. I can see it's in pretty rough shape." Kate nodded, gesturing toward the structure. "It belonged to my grandfather. I've been meaning to repair it for months now, but I've been so busy with other things that it kept getting pushed down the list. The roof is leaking, the door needs to be rehung, and I suspect some of the support beams are rotting. I was hoping you could assess it and let me know if it's salvageable or if I should just tear it down and start over." Marcus walked around the shed, his experienced eye taking in every detail. He tested the boards, examined the foundation, and climbed up carefully to inspect the roof. Kate watched him work, appreciating his thoroughness. After about 20 minutes, he climbed down and wiped his hands on his jeans. "It's definitely salvageable," he said. "The foundation is solid, and most of the frame is still good. You've got some rotted boards that need replacing, the roof needs new shingles in several sections, and obviously the door situation needs fixing. I'd estimate it's about 2, maybe 3 days of work depending on how much help I have and whether we run into any surprises." Kate seemed relieved. "That's actually better news than I expected. What would something like this cost?" Marcus did some quick mental calculations, factoring in materials and his labor. He quoted her a price that was fair but lower than what most contractors would charge. Kate agreed without hesitation, which surprised him slightly. Most people in his experience tried to negotiate, especially for farm work. They agreed he would start immediately, and Kate mentioned she'd be around if he needed anything. She disappeared into a small farmhouse visible in the distance, and Marcus set to work. He began by carefully removing the damaged door, setting it aside to use as a template for repairs. The physical labor felt good, familiar. There was something meditative about working with his hands, solving practical problems that had clear solutions. Unlike the complexities of single parenthood or the persistent anxiety about money, a broken door could be fixed with the right tools and effort. Several hours into the work, Kate returned carrying a thermos and 2 cups. "Thought you might want some coffee," she offered. "It's getting warm, but I figured a break wouldn't hurt." Marcus gratefully accepted. They sat on a stack of old lumber, sipping the coffee in companionable silence for a moment before Kate asked, "Have you been doing this kind of work long?" "About 7 years seriously," Marcus replied. "Before that, I had a regular job at a manufacturing plant 2 towns over, but it closed down. Had to figure out something else. Turns out I'm pretty good at fixing things." "You certainly seem to know what you're doing," Kate observed. "Where did you learn?" "My dad mostly. He could build or repair anything. Used to say that a man who could work with his hands would never be without purpose." Marcus smiled at the memory, though it was tinged with sadness. His father had passed away 5 years ago, never getting to meet Emma. Kate seemed about to ask another question but hesitated. Instead, she said, "Well, I appreciate you taking this on. This shed has sentimental value. My grandfather built it when he first started farming here. He was a man who believed in doing things right the first time, but even the best construction needs maintenance eventually." Over the next 2 days, Marcus returned to continue the work. Each day, Kate would check on his progress, sometimes bringing coffee or water, other times just observing quietly. They developed an easy rapport, their conversations casual but increasingly personal. Marcus learned that Kate had inherited the farm from her grandfather, who had raised her after her parents died in a car accident when she was young. She spoke fondly of the old man, describing his wisdom and patient teaching. For his part, Marcus found himself talking about Emma, how proud he was of her resilience and intelligence despite the hardships they'd faced. He mentioned Sarah only briefly, the pain still too acute for extended discussion with someone he barely knew. But Kate seemed to understand, never pushing for details he wasn't ready to share. What struck Marcus most about Kate was her unpretentious nature. Despite clearly owning this farm, she dressed practically, spoke plainly, and seemed genuinely interested in the work he was doing. She even helped at times, holding boards steady while he nailed them in place or fetching tools from his truck. There was no hint of the superiority or condescension he'd occasionally encountered from wealthier clients who seemed to view manual labor as beneath them. On the 3rd day, as Marcus was applying the final coat of weather sealant to the repaired door, a massive pickup truck pulling an equipment trailer pulled up the long driveway. A man in his 50s climbed out, dressed in expensive ranch wear that looked more suited for a country western store catalog than actual farm work. He walked over with the confidence of someone accustomed to authority. "Kate Morrison," he called out, scanning the area. Kate emerged from the farmhouse, walking toward him with a neutral expression. "Mr. Patterson, I wasn't expecting you today. I was in the area and thought I'd stop by to see if you'd reconsidered my offer," Patterson said smoothly. "The proposal still stands. I'm prepared to pay top dollar for Clearwater Farm. With the expansion I'm planning, your property would be the perfect addition to my holdings." Marcus continued working but couldn't help overhearing the conversation. Kate's voice was firm when she responded. "As I've told you before, Mr. Patterson, Clearwater isn't for sale. My grandfather left it to me with the understanding that I'd maintain his legacy, not sell out to the highest bidder." Patterson's smile didn't waver, but there was steel beneath it. "Kate, be reasonable. You're sitting on over 5,000 acres of prime agricultural land. That's a responsibility, not just sentimentally but economically. My operation could maximize the productivity of this land in ways a small-time farmer simply cannot. Think about what you could do with the money." Marcus nearly dropped his brush. 5,000 acres? He'd assumed Kate owned maybe 50 or 100 acres, a modest family farm. 5,000 acres made her one of the largest landowners in the entire county, possibly the region. The modest clothes, the personal involvement in a simple shed repair, the complete absence of pretension suddenly took on new meaning. Kate's expression hardened. "Mr. Patterson, I understand perfectly well what I own and what it's worth. My grandfather built this operation from nothing, and he taught me everything about running it properly. Clearwater Farm isn't just productive. It's profitable and sustainable. I have no interest in your money or your expansion plans. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do. Patterson looked like he wanted to argue further, but seemed to recognize the futility. With a curt nod, he returned to his truck and drove away, leaving a cloud of dust in his wake. Kate stood watching until he disappeared, then turned back toward the shed. She caught Marcus staring and offered a slightly embarrassed smile. I suppose you heard all that, she said. Marcus nodded slowly, still processing the revelation. 5,000 acres? I had no idea. I mean, I knew you owned a farm, but I thought... You thought I was just another small farmer scraping by? Kate finished for him. Most people assume that. I don't exactly advertise the size of the operation. My grandfather taught me that land ownership comes with responsibility, not bragging rights. He believed in living modestly and investing profits back into the land and the community. Marcus set down his brush and faced her directly. So why did you hire me? For a shed repair? Someone with your resources could have brought in a professional construction crew, had this done in a day. Kate walked closer, her expression sincere. Because Tom Henderson told me you were a good man who'd fallen on hard times and deserved opportunities. Because my grandfather always said that you measure a person's character not by what they have, but by what they do with what they've been given. And honestly, because I could tell from our first conversation that you'd do the job right. You care about the work itself, not just the paycheck. That's rare. Marcus felt a complicated mix of emotions. Embarrassment at being essentially a charity case, gratitude for the work, and a growing respect for this woman who could have easily been dismissive or condescending but chose neither. I appreciate that, he said quietly. And for what it's worth, I hope you never sell to guys like Patterson. The world needs more people who care about doing things right instead of just maximizing profit. Kate smiled warmly. Thank you. That means more than you might think. She paused, then continued. Actually, I have a proposition for you. The farm always needs maintenance. Fences, equipment sheds, the main barn, various structures scattered across the property. I usually contract out when something major breaks down, but I'd prefer to have someone reliable on call, someone who could handle ongoing repairs and preventive maintenance. Would you be interested in a regular arrangement? Steady work, fair pay, flexible hours so you can be there for your daughter. Marcus felt his heart rate accelerate. Steady work. The two words every struggling contractor dreamed of hearing. Are you serious? Completely. You've proven you're skilled and trustworthy. I need someone like that. Think it over if you want, but the offer stands. Marcus didn't need to think it over. Yes. Absolutely yes. Thank you, Kate. You have no idea what this means. I think I do, she replied gently. Everyone deserves a fair chance and honest work. Now, finish up that door so we can talk about the barn roof. I've been putting off dealing with it, but winter's coming. As Marcus applied the final touches to the shed repair, he reflected on the unexpected turn his life had taken. He'd come here expecting a single odd job, another temporary patch on his precarious financial situation. Instead, he'd found not just work but a kind of restoration he hadn't anticipated. The weight on his shoulders felt slightly lighter, the future marginally less terrifying. That evening, when he picked up Emma from school, she immediately noticed his lighter mood. Did something good happen today, Dad? Marcus ruffled her hair affectionately. Yeah, Emma. Something good happened. I think things might be looking up for us. As they drove home, Marcus thought about Kate Morrison and her 5,000 acres of farmland, about grandfathers who taught integrity and responsibility, about the dignity of honest work and the grace of people who use their advantages to lift others up rather than look down on them. He'd come to Clearwater Farm as a struggling single dad, taking any job he could find. He was leaving with something far more valuable than just a day's wages. He was leaving with hope, and for Marcus Green, that was worth more than all the acres in the county.